Hello there. Good evening and welcome to the panel discussion on fast tracking your digital transformation journey in 2021, brought to you by the Economic Times and by Kissflow. Thank you all for joining us. A big thanks to all the panelists and also to all the audience members who have joined us today. My name is Alokesh Bhattacharya. I'm senior editor at the Economic Times. I will host today's discussion. We have a very strong panel today. Let me just introduce you to them. We have Venkat Raman, CIO of MTR Foods. Venkat, just say hi. We have
Hi.
Lakshit Daga, CTO of Big Basket.
Hi all, pleasure to be here.
We have Asim Rastogi, Head Security and Compliance at Razorpay.
Hi guys.
Asim. We have Akilur Rahman, is the CTO of Hitachi ABB Power Grids India. Okay. We have Manish Shetty, the CIO of Diageo India. Manish, welcome.
Thank you.
We have Neil Miller, Director of the Digital Workplace Alliance. Neil,
Hello.
welcome. Good morning to you. Neil is joining us from the United States and it's very early morning for him.
Yeah.
And we have Suresh Sambandam, the CEO of Kissflow. So, digital transformation, it's always a great subject of discussion. And I just love having these discussions because it gives us so much insight into trends that are, impacting industries. And today's panel, as you would have already seen, it represents a variety of industries. So we are looking forward really to a great session with lots of insights and lots of interplay. Let me set some context first. The difference in the digital transformation journey of enterprises before and after COVID is very, very stark. All of us have seen it and experienced it. The pace of digital adoption has multiplied across industries, across functions, and across continents. In the period of the lockdown, when the lockdown was there, it actually almost pitchforked us into a futuristic world where there is no physical contact. Everything is done virtually, whether it is jobs, education, or care, celebration. Today, of course, the lockdown is gone, but the sprint towards digital is not going away. It's here to stay. And we were discussing just before the panel started, that organizations that were dithering on their DT journeys earlier, they have almost been forced to step up the pace. So there was a saying before the pandemic hit us, the very famous saying which says that in the future, you are either a digital company or you are dead. Now that future has come to us much faster than we could ever have imagined, right? We were thinking like future we had, there's a lot of time, but that time is no longer there. It's here. So interestingly, there's a global Cxo survey by a consulting firm McKinsey, which throws up some very interesting insights. I'll just read out some insights to you quickly. So across regions, the results of the survey suggest an average 7-year increase in creating digital or digitally enhanced offerings. That's phenomenal. But listen to this. Companies on average have reacted 20 to 25 times faster to COVID related changes than earlier. The acceleration was maximum in remote working and collaboation, just 40 times faster than before. 40 times, not 40%, as Suresh was saying, when we were discussing this. That's phenomenal. And remote working and collaboration is followed by online offerings for customer purchases and increased use of advanced technologies in operations. And there's a host of other things also. Now, when respondents were asked why their organizations did not implement these changes before the crisis, more than half said that it was not a top business priority. But today it is, right? That is what has fundamentally changed. And perhaps the most important finding from that survey was that respondents said most of the changes that have happened are likely to be permanent. They're not likely to be rolled back. So if you look at it, the pandemic has actually forced digital to become a CEO and a board level agenda. Today, you don't have to tell a CEO or a chairman of a board that they should look at digital technologies as a force enabler. They know it, right? You don't have to tell them. At the same time, to drive the change, the employee has to be the centerpiece of this whole transformation process. Unless every employee in your organization understands and buys into your vision of digital transformation, it's not going to help you much. And so that actually increases the responsibilities of the technology leadership, the CIO, the CTO, the CISO, among others, right? So today I'm really very happy to chair this panel of technology leaders from some of India's leading companies and to throw some more light on the DT journey ahead of us. Before we get into the panel discussion, I would like to invite Suresh from Kissflow for his address. Suresh, over to you.
Okay, thank you everyone, and I think we have a fantastic panel organized. Thanks for ET. Okay, let me quickly share my screen. Okay,
Yes.
so yeah, welcome everyone. I think already Alokesh alluded to this. So I think this is a famous cartoon that was trending. Like who led the digital transformation of your company? And the favorite funny answer was COVID-19. But
Better than all the other insights that you can give.
but but it's not a joke. This is actually the reality, right? Because
Absolutely.
yeah, there was this chart which I encountered that was floating around, which how work related mobile apps download got changed once and for all, one somewhere in middle of February, right? And then it just took off like a rocket ship, and it didn't die down, right? It just sort of there was a hype, and then it continued to stay high. So we have things have radically changed because of COVID, right? So the approach to work, the construct of workplaces, we sort of starting to understand the new definition of workplaces, right? Because previously we thought workplace is where people come to just get work done, but then we realized after COVID, when we start missing the workplaces, we realize that workplace is where people build relationships, bonding, togetherness, camaraderie, and so many things were happening. So yeah, I think there are lots and lots of understanding that's come because of COVID. And then there is a need of a completely digital talent base beyond just the IT team, right? And then of course outcome linked tech purchases were always there, but then you put a lot more fire under the belly when COVID hit. But I think what I also want to share with you is this particular Gartner slide with specific numbers was pretty interesting. One of the things is, although in 2020 there is a dip in terms of overall growth, see, IT is actually a 3.3 plus trillion dollars of economy, right? Globally, we're talking about a 3.5, 3.6 trillion dollar IT economy, right? But actually it degrew by 3% or so because of COVID. But then things are looking pretty good in 2021. So it's actually I wanted to talk about a little bit of a confidence building exercise. So it's going to go to a 4 trillion in a year or so, roughly, right? And what is important is a bulk of that growth is actually coming from enterprise software, and specifically SaaS, because there's no longer somebody's going to do non-SaaS software, right? So with that, I also wanted to sort of quickly allude to digital transformation 2.0, which is what is we are going through that. If you really look at 1.0, we continue to do what we are doing. That will be like a digital transformation 1.0, right? We have a new digital baseline, and we need to do something radically different and change the trajectory. And once you do that, you end up doing what is called as digital transformation 2.0. And what that is, the key focus of the next leg of DX journey is what is called as the DX 2.0, is the notion of empowering employees at the front line of the business. Because until now, we're only providing, IT does a lot of the stuff and then provides it to the front line, and they basically use it. But how do we involve the frontline employees to actually be part of the digital asset creation exercise, which Gartner, for example, calls that as a citizen developer. So now how do we bring the frontline employees as citizen developers to be able to do a bunch of new things? And in this paradigm of digital transformation, there are three distinctive steps, right? There is a digitization step, there is a digitalization step, and there is, of course, a transformation step, which is related to conversion, adaptation, and then creation of new business processes that were non-digital, probably manual, probably paper, or whatever it is, and coming into the more digital paradigm. And what this really means is, digitization is, of course, analog to digital, and digitalization is about productivity and incremental innovation. But the transformational aspect of the DX 2.0 is about a complete mindset change of digital first, change in leadership style, change in cultural attitude, change in mindset, and most importantly, change in what we call a speed to value. We always talk about return on investment or value for money and stuff like that, but then there is this new dimension of speed to value, how much quicker you can get that value, and that's actually becoming more and more critical, right? And this is another famous study from Salesforce, which talks about the top 5 experience initiative for IT, and then top 5 employee experience challenges for IT. And I think I don't want to go through the bullet by bullet, but I think it's obvious, right? uh, so one of the starking takeaways is that 84% of IT leaders say improved employees' technical knowledge is critical for the company to compete in the marketplace, and that's massive, right? And I think COVID-19 has actually put more tailwinds in this particular thought process. But unfortunately, when you come back and look at it in Indian context, 74% of India's executives said their business continues to use offline workflows, which is actually lowest among many countries in the world. And less than half of Indian employees and executives believe that they were fully integrated system of across business function. That is the number that we are really talking about, right? And how is this possible, right? How do we involve the frontline employees into mainstream digital transformation exercise, for this slide will be pretty useful. The concept of long tail, for example, Google works on the concept of long tail, right, is very popular in the B2C space. But then even in the enterprise, once you become bigger, there is all these fathead applications like the ERP, CRM, all of these things. But then there is a number of processes, thousands and thousands of processes. The bigger the companies that are, that's all running in Excel and email and paper, and not probably paper, but mostly on email and Excel and all of that, right? And all of those things are unstructured and not traceable, not analyzable, not trackable, and auditable, and all of those things. All those processes are simple applications which the frontline employees can do it themselves without actually having to do that, because this is a big burden for IT to do it, because this will take away precious time from them. So there is an analysis that's been done by adopting this long tail automation for implementing through the frontline employees. There is a huge productivity by 52% and operational efficiency by 40%, and customer experience increases by 46%. So what this really means is also this new paradigm. What is coming into the world is actually a no code, low code paradigm, where the IT teams really starting to love, and this is a $40 billion market now, right? And this is actually reducing the backlog for the IT teams. They are able to do the good stuff because pushing all the simple applications to the business to do it, and then just probably go handhold them. It saves real money. It's very easy to maintain because bulk of the maintenance goes to the business front line, and it gives you exponential productivity. And remember that spike curve that I was talking about in the early slides, and then it becomes a very easy IT management. So this is really where Kissflow comes in. Kissflow helps you, that frontline users, to be able to come on to the system and then build those applications on themselves using our no code platform. But then using a low code platform, IT can build more sophisticated, complex, complete applications, right? So it is both. We have a deadly combination of having no code for business and low code for IT teams to create custom applications, automating business processes, streamlining workflows, and then move to digital transformation and then go paperless. So basically, it's a single platform which does both of these things. And we have customers like Reckitt Benckiser, which is a very, very popular brand, which uses our software. They are a global top 10 company. We are in 73 different processes are being automated. They have like 10,000 users on Kissflow. They are using it in 34 different countries across various functions like procurement, supply chain, finance, and integrated with SAP, meaning they have a huge cluster of enterprise applications and which we integrate with. So basically, Kissflow is a single platform. We have customers in 160 countries, 10,000 companies use it, and we have more than 1 million users. These are where all our customers are there, and these are the brands that actually use Kissflow. In India also, we have very big brands that are using our software. We are actually leader in the G2 Crowd quadrant. We're featured in Forrester and Gartner as well. And thank you very much. I hope I didn't take more than 5 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Suresh. I will not comment on the time, but it was a very nice presentation. Thank you. And yeah, quite an interesting presentation. Lots of interesting stuff. Like you rightly said, outcome linked purchase is something that we've always been talking about, but now it's the key to survival, right? If you have to grow, if you're not able to show outcomes for the technology purchases, then you're not buying, right? And yeah, speed to value. That's something the new that I've heard today. I'm sure all of you have heard it before. I'm not a CIO, so I might not have heard it earlier. But yeah, speed to value sounds really natural. Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah.
And now, yeah, even 2021, like you showed the Gartner prediction, yeah, 2021 looks good. And now even the economy is beginning to look good with IMF predicting double-digit GDP growth for India next fiscal. Yes, so we are all keeping fingers crossed and hope that things will go on. So let us begin. And who better to start with than with Neil, because he's the consultant, the expert on everything digital. So, and you're joining us from the USA. Neil, maybe you could tell us a little bit about what you're seeing in developed markets, to give us a slightly better perspective of where India is placed. What are the major kind of patterns, that you can see in terms of digital transformation initiatives in the West?
Yeah, I think India is very well placed right now because even in the US, we are trying to reimagine what digital looks like. I think there was kind of like Suresh said, there's a digital 1.0 of just seeing digital transformation as an add-on strategy or some little project that was going off the side the CIO was working on. But now it's shifted to where digital transformation is the core strategy for the company. But it's not easy just to bring that over. So we're seeing a lot of companies rethink their entire systems. So it's not just about, hey, how do we add technology, but it's about how is adding this technology, how is that going to impact the way we measure productivity, the way we collaborate, the way we lead. So it's like every part of the enterprise is going to be touched by digital. So it's a chance to rethink and to redo that. And I think India is in a great place because so many companies are ready to think like that anyway and to build it in. And the capabilities, especially when it comes to mobile, that are already in people's hands and people are used to using these digital tools is a big one. It's really a mindset shift to start to think moving away from things like email processes and Excel processes and jumping straight into more streamlined tools and taking advantage of those. So I'm excited about what's happening here in the US and what's happening around the world. Just a reimagining of how can all these systems be rebuilt.
Right, and happy to hear that you're happy to see what's happening in India, and we have some of India's best companies right here, sitting with us across the table today. So it'll be good to get some views. So let us start with a little bit of a strategy aspect. Already some questions have begun to come, and one of the questions refers to challenges in terms of one of the biggest challenges is the maturity of companies to start digital transformation, and how do you walk through this disadvantage? We'll come to that. It's from Alejandro. I hope I've got the pronunciation right. But my question to the panel, first of all, is now that the COVID-19 is like almost behind us, right? And we have seen this massive shift. What are the pillars of your new digitalization strategy that has been born from this crisis? So perhaps you could illustrate that with any one radical initiative that you have taken during this time. And I will open this up to the panel in terms of, whoever wants to go first. Maybe Venkat, do you want to start?
Yes, Alok, with the onset of COVID, we realized that it is a change in the way we work, and there should be some enabler for people to latch on to, which will not only enhance the productivity, it will also enable them to work from whichever location they would like to. So employee safety was one key factor which was assessed. And then there are multiple other pillars on which we thought we would be working on, like you see, user and customer experiences are of paramount importance. So in this case, in our case, employee experience was quite critical. So we ensured that the experience is to the optimum. We also ensured that the change is handled in a very precise way, and IT extends that helping hand to the users. Uh, then there was a culture aspect also which was to be built, because we were not sure whether this situation would be temporary for a month or two, or it may extend beyond a few months. So obviously, this culture of remote work and collaboration, cohesion for productivity to enhance or at least to continue in that manner. So that was pretty important. So we thought that these were the things around which we had to focus. So if you see, you have to sum up, this three pillars of people, process, and technology were vital in the process of digital transformation, and we needed to be agile in responding to this situation.
Okay, I'll come to Rakshit after this because Rakshit, you must be delivering MTR food stuff, in your value chain. So tell us about the pillars that Venkat mentioned. Are they similar to what you're doing, and give us an example of any initiative that took, because a
Sure.
lot of legacy companies have been riding Big Basket and the other delivery mechanisms and the marketplaces during the lockdown and after. Tell us.
Sure. Sure. So let me take you back to the COVID times, right? As in when the first lockdown happened in India, there was a situation where grocery, being the primary demand of the massive user base, not only existing customers or even new users. As soon as the lockdown was announced, Big Basket was one of the companies that everybody kind of logged on to. So we saw scale that was unprecedented for us. And this happened in combination with a situation where a lot of the workforce was actually starting to go back home. There were shutdowns across the country and so on. Right. So the immediate challenge for us was, given a fast subduing operation, or given an operation where we've had to shut down a lot of the warehouses, where a lot of the blue collar workforce was actually not available, how could we do more with less? Right. So that's where everybody started to combine their expertise, the supply chain folks, the technology folks, the product folks, all put their heads together and started to think about what can we do to actually not only keep the business up and running in even in a situation where demand is unprecedented. There was not much clarity on supplies coming in. There's not enough delivery folks, etc. But we also viewed our services as something that was kind of becoming a nationally important thing. We started thinking about the fact that delivering grocery to customers when they cannot get out of the house is actually going to be a most important thing. And then there was the whole government clearances to seek. So that was what the people on the ground were doing. On the technology side, we started to optimize how our supply chain works. We changed the paradigm, for example, in terms of how goods move from one warehouse to another. We started moving goods in bulk instead of packing it per customer. We decided to actually move whole crates of packets. We figured out ways where picking could happen thrice as fast with a smaller number of workforce. How do you actually, instead of delivering in a bike or in a van, is there a mechanism where you could work with societies directly, where you do bulk deliveries, right? And all of this needed to happen on a software platform that was already built, which was built to supply groceries to customers in a very specific way. So we were in double quick time trying to figure out, how do you adapt the platform? How do you introduce new technologies to make sure that a lot of our customer base is actually able to receive these goods? I'll give you one more example. We realized that a lot of the customers would come to Big Basket, they would actually build their cart, and only to realize that slots are not available, right? And we wanted to solve that problem from the very basic principles. So then we introduced what we call the token system, right? So the customer who would first come to Big Basket would get issued a token, and a token would tell you a guaranteed availability of a delivery slot if you come back at a certain time. So practically, there was only so much that we were able to deliver, but at the same time, the core value proposition was, how do we keep our customers coming back for grocery? How do you actually make sure that deliveries happen to them? So there's a number of initiatives, but if I were to summarize it, I think the mantra became, how do we do more with less, both in terms of people, both in terms of supplies, etc. So that was really the a big
So just
initiative.
one thing, it reminds me, doing more with less is something that I've been hearing for quite some time, and it's a great thing that companies are adopting. But when you are doing something like, say, bulk transportation, when you're changing the whole delivery model, instead of transferring goods by customer order, you are doing bulk. How are you doing that? Are you doing that in terms by predictive modeling, thinking that, assuming, how you do manage your inventory otherwise?
From a digital standpoint, maybe Big Basket is sort of a young company. So we were born into the digital world, right? From the very get-go, we were a cloud shop. Most of our software, most of our operations are technology enabled, right? So there we were trying to build a platform where some of the algorithms could be pluggable. So we do have, for example, forecasting algorithms which predict how much a customer is likely to order on any given day from any warehouse. And a warehouse is typically stocked up with those quantities. But to give you a very practical example, what we realized is even the act of unstacking SKUs from the hardware, SKUs from the mother DC to the local DC was costing us too much time. Then we came up with an innovation. We're saying we're going to do only crate-based stacking. So if the projected quantity for sale on a certain warehouse was, let's say, 103, we would round it up to the nearest crate, make sure that the orders that got placed to the mother DC were in that crate form. The stacking would actually happen in a crate form, but when the picking happened, that's when you would open up the crate and so on. So this is just one practical example of how we sort of optimized. But many such optimizations happened across the board, right? Because fundamentally, the problem statement is you are trying to deliver twice as many orders with half as many people. So you have to try and become 4x more efficient. And how do you do this? Not an easy problem to solve, but we put our best minds to it and came up with a number of innovations.
Correct. Great stuff. And with that, I'll come to Manish, because Manish, you're also in that business of delivering, stuff. While of course most people come to you rather than you go to them, right, to buy our product. But there have also been these huge spikes, right, when the lockdown eased, and we were discussing that the other day that there was this huge queues in Bangalore and in other places. The moment the lockdown eased and one liquor shop opened, there was like 3-kilometer, 5-kilometer long queues to buy the product, right? So how did you manage, and what for you are today the new pillars of your digitization strategy?
So I think if you see the COVID lockdown, I see it in two phases, right? One was the initial phase which was completely unplanned when it happened, right? So it was more of business continuity planning for everybody, I thought, right? Because the whole state was shut down, which plant would be open, which won't be open. There was no visibility into that based on the numbers coming up. There were decisions being made, and you had to respond to that, right? And we had capacity. Being in the manufacturing industry, we saw clear. So they've April and May, it was a clear drop in demand, right? It was no demand at all because all the retail was shut down completely, and we don't have online sales of liquor in India right now, right? There was material shortage based on the lockdowns across the country, disruptions in the supply chain, worker scarcity. So that was the first phase, as I see it. The second phase, when you look at it, is with the business or the different states slowly opening up, right? And you ramping up the production, supply chain, and ensuring the delivery, some similar to what Rakshit was talking about, because the demand was very fragile, right? Because you wouldn't know, and we have in India, liquor is a state level business. So you have manufacturing in each of the states. And generally moving from one state to other is moving from one country to the other, right? You have to import, export, and all those regulations come in. So planning those things is where the challenge came. So what we looked at in our process, and we call something called grain to glass, right? We broke it into two processes. One is the grain to bottle, which is completely in control from the sourcing of material all the way to the bottling that happens. And then you look at from bottle to the consumer, right? Now that portion, depending on the model of each of we have 3 routes to market in India. If you look at each one, the kind of visibility we have is different, right? In some, we rely on inventory data that comes in to let us know how and where the demand will be. In some, we have straight visibility. And that's what we focused on our supply chain, right? The other bit that we looked at is we had capacity which was available in our plants, which was not getting used to manufacture liquor. but we used that for the demand of the nation at that time to supply hand sanitizers to the workers and the army, right? Which was a very critical need at that time, and both are alcohol based. So we said that we have the capacity, we have the competency, why not use it for that, right? And that was, I think, a great initiative of redirecting and making sure we didn't lose on the capacity that was lying around. I think the transformation journey, most companies who are on the call, and I'm sure Venkat, Rakshit, everyone will agree, there was digital transformation that was already going on, right? And I think Rakshit mentioned that they are I think the youngest company on this call, similar to Cxo, where are born in we are the digital dinosaurs, right? Which have been around for a while, and we are looking at the journey. So you have a mix of traditional applications and new applications which are on the cloud. And I think that journey and acceleration in the second world has gone up. Now you look at the three ecosystem, you're looking at demand from the consumers and how the consumption patterns are changing. People are not traveling as much. Your duty-free sales are not at the same level. People are not going to on-premise to bars and restaurants where the consumption happens. It's more at home consumption which is going on. So how do you tailor your solutions or your product to that, right? And entice the consumer in that space. That was one of the consumer space. Then you look at your employees saying the work environment has completely changed. There is new requirements around the health, around the social distancing in the plants. How are we managing? Is everyone wearing a mask? Are you having those kind of, though there is no clear regulation in place, we have put camera solutions everywhere, and we track this so that at every plant, we know exactly how people are being compliant to the processes that are being put in place, right? And the third layer which comes is the partner ecosystem, right? All the partners that we work with to make sure how the sourcing will happen when the material challenges came in. So I think I see it as two different worlds, one when it hit us, and the second one as we are moved ahead. And I think a lot of the changes are here to stay, right? I don't think we'll go back to the normal world before COVID anytime soon.
Yeah, we are into the new normal. And I'll come for a different perspective to Akilur, because yours is a very different kind of business. It's definitely not a direct to consumer kind of business, right? So, probably you give us your sense of, from that kind of an industry, the energy kind of an industry, what are the new pillars of digital transformation as you see them?
Yeah, thanks, Alokesh. So I will sort of deal with two ways. One is that what we are doing as a company, and also what we do for our customers. So here, I mean, we are Hitachi ABB Power Grids, more than 135 years old and technology company, and so many of the digital technologies what we talk about, it has been there in our domain. Whether we talk about the energy power systems domain or maybe industrial automation. I also remember when I was doing my master's 30 years back, my master's project was a digital simulation of electric network. I think electric network has been the pioneer and the first early adapter of digital simulation of any large scale system, analyzing and optimizing it and controlling it, automating it. What actually this COVID situation led to is basically realizing the importance of all these digital technologies and adapting it faster, accelerated usage. Yeah. So I'll take you give you some examples of let's say the automation. When we talk about as ABB, Hitachi ABB Power Grids, we automate the plants, the manufacturing process, the production processes. There are a whole lot of sensors, actuators, controllers, robots, machines in the plant, which we connect through the network and then do the real-time automation. And so there we talk about, let's say, the robots. Robots, as ABB, Hitachi ABB, we have been in robotics in 70s. Industrial robots. And we almost 5 years back, we had a robot which is called Yumi. You and me working together. It's a collaborative robot where it will work in the machine, the shop floor. The worker and the robot can work hand in hand. There is no safety issue. It's very learning kind of robot, which will also learn from the co-worker. And with this situation, people see that, okay, in my plant or factory, I will have less number of people because of whatever reason, either they are not available or social distancing. So with having a robot also as a co-worker, it will help. So that technology which was there, 5 years back, we released. I think now people started seeing that, oh, this is something I can use it in my plant. The second one also, that how you can use robot with less number of people at site, because traveling and also having a lot of people at site. For example, we have this big transformers, which we had to go for our customers basically, and it had to be inspected every 2 years, so that there is nothing inside the transformers. So it's filled with oil, with windings, electrical windings, electromagnetic principle. So there it used to be like you have to evacuate the transformer, the oil you have to evacuate, you have to disassemble the transformer. It takes couple of weeks to really do this process. And in fact, in last December, we introduced this robot. It was there last 5 years as HAPG, Hitachi ABB Power Grids. We had that technology, but in last December, so we used it for one of our customers, steel customers, where the robot was actually sent inside the tank, the transformer tank. So it's called diver robot. So it dives inside the tank, and then you do the inspection. Just one person is required to really, control the robot and also remotely monitor it, and then find out what is the problem inside. So from 2-3 weeks of downtime of the transformer, it could be only 2-3 hours. So you can imagine. So
Yeah.
then the other one is, of course, this human machine interface. Because of this COVID situation, so there are not many people who can go to the factory, the remote site, and do work on the machine or maybe the system. So then we also introduced this remote monitoring of the real-time process, industrial processes, as well as power, the energy systems, real-time analysis, analyzing it. And these systems are very time critical. Like in millisecond, something can happen. We have to track the time in millisecond. And also remote testing of the equipment. So we also had a lot of clients who could not travel to our manufacturing facility. So we connected them remotely, but it's not just remote connectivity. It's all about also looking at the real-time data of any equipment being tested, analyzing, and then certifying it. And remote engineering, remote installation of a lot of equipment with automation, and also remote commissioning. I think this COVID situation has actually created this necessity for, and also by the customers, consumers, users, to actually appreciate the technology which has been there maybe last 5 years, 10 years, and then start using it. I think that has really led to, and then it's going to be much more in future. So
Absolutely
I think
right.
it's all about how we connect the real-time automation, the different ERP systems. I mean, since it's a CIO audience, very important is that now this IT and OT convergence is much more. Earlier, it used to be that in the industrial automation or utility power automation, there will be one group which is OT, and IT is separate, because IT looks after only the ERP, non-real-time kind of transactional system. But now they are also converging, that taking the real-time data from the industry, from the plant, from the factory, and connecting with the ERP, and also connecting with your supply chain to the customer, to the consumer, and also using techniques like machine learning to forecast the demand, and also accordingly plan the production. So I think that's really it has brought the convergence among IT and OT. I think that way the automation platform we provide as a company, automation company, also power and automation company, and also the bringing in different IT, IoT platforms. That's really sort of, I would say, the game changer. I would say that accelerator of the digital.
Thanks. In fact, there's a question has also come from the audience about, are we going to talk about OT also, or are we going to only talk about IT today? Right. So there's quite some sharp questions coming in. And thanks for your opening note, Akhilur. I'll come to Aseem. And Aseem, there has also been questions raised on cybersecurity, and you are the cybersecurity champ in this group. So, you're also a digital native company, right? Razorpay, all digital, all cloud, I guess, right? So, and you're enabling a lot of stuff that we are doing in our everyday lives. So you tell us, about from your aspect on digital transformation and also on the cybersecurity aspect. How important is cybersecurity to a digital transformation strategy?
Right. So, I mean, we are a young company and we are definitely digital native and cloud native also, we thought, right? But then COVID showed us that we still had miles to cover in terms of our internal employee engagements and their productivity and the remote working situation. Being a startup, we were a very close knit company, right? As coming in an office and working together in trenches. So, however, COVID showed us that we had miles to go. So, on that front, we embarked upon a E5 strategy. We call it E5, and E5 is like enable, empower, engage, experience, and efficient, right? So, these are the things we wanted to empower for our employees, and these were completely employee focused initiatives which we took upon. It's a multi-quarter where we put together a state of the art self-service and user experience in terms of employee. So we all talk about customer experience and that we have been doing a great job at it. But employee experience often gets overlooked. So this gave us COVID situation gave us an opportunity to focus on employees and give them state of the art experience which we are habitual to giving to our customers. So from that point of view, we worked into a lot of productivity tools and things of that nature. Now, coming to security, security really goes hand in hand with digital transformation because we are putting a lot of processes online onto cloud and multiple third-party apps. So with that, it's really important to have security focused, and not only in terms of operational security of the softwares and productivity tools, but also the data residency which is coming into play these days. Because we are having multiple countries are having data residency laws, and India is also going to come up very shortly. So as we use these productivity tools which are hosted elsewhere, there might be employee data which might be shared across inadvertently and things like that. So yeah, I mean that's something we had to be very careful, and at Razorpay we take that very seriously. And before embarking on any new solutions or software, we vet it from a security and data point of view very thoroughly.
Thanks. And I just want to announce that Sandeep Kaja, you are in the audience and we like your question. I'm going to put you on camera at some point. So please stay with us and stay alert. But not now. I'll call you in a bit.
Okay,
yeah, sure, Rishi.
something happened. I remembered we had a large liquor brand in Latin America as a customer. I forgot the name, so I just messaged my team, what is the brand name? And then they said it's Diageo. So, and by the way, MTR Foods is a customer of Kissflow as well. Thanks, Venkat, for being a great customer. Yeah.
That's fine. Thank you.
MTR is a favorite brand of a lot of people, including me and my family. We buy a lot of stuff
Oh, great to hear.
from malls. So, in fact, I was going to come to you, Suresh, with the next question, which basically, you heard everybody speaking here in terms of what all digital strategies they have brought forward, what all they're investing in, fantastic stuff from Akilur, in terms of from the manufacturing perspective, but you tell us as a guy, as a person and as a company that is promoting digital transformation in organizations, and that in India, unlike in the US and all, we don't have that much capital to invest, right? And we have to be we are a value for money, country in every sense of the word, right? Whether it is buying a car or buying a technology for your organization. So, in that respect, how would you suggest in a strategy for investment in technologies? What are the technologies that companies should look at in terms of investment, considering that they have a limited kind of money allocated there?
See, actually, there are in the digital transformation, there are three major use cases are there, right? One is the consumer or the customer facing use case. It's basically called as, you have to develop applications that are multi-experience based, right? It's basically consumer facing experience. Then there is internal process transformation, right? And
Yep.
then there is sort of a legacy modernization. Like if you look at big companies like Unilever or Procter and Gamble or Reckitt Benckiser, or Diageo, like they have like hundreds of years of history, and they have a lot of applications built over the years. And these are the three buckets in which the digital transformation actually is happening, right? And one of the things what's happening from India is actually India is starting to ride the SaaS wave globally, B2B SaaS, partly because we have what is called as the low cost advantage. We are able to make software because of marketing cost and selling costs, or most bulk of the cost is actually selling and marketing costs in software, not really the making part, right? Because 50% of your cost is actually in sales and marketing in B2B software, probably more, right? And we are able to deliver, like we have customers in 160 countries, and we had customers like Diageo. We never went and met them in Latin America. We are able to reach them from India through digital marketing, and they are able to come and try our product and then like our product and buy our product. We have not met a single person in that company, right?
You met Manish now.
Yeah, meaning just now I'm meeting Manish, and I just want to make sure I'm telling the name correctly. So I just double confirmed with my team. So yeah, so that is the new paradigm of digital that we are talking about, right? And hence, like a company like Freshworks or Zoho is able to give a bang for the buck for, and then compete with global companies, because we are making software that Indian companies can afford. And hence, we are changing the equation of the global software landscape, and Kissflow is also in the same bucket. And we are able to offer a technology when it comes to low code and no code platforms, so that Indian companies can afford. So the paradigm also enables, like if you basically instead of choosing a conventional development approach and use a low code no code platform, you're going to save at least 100% of the cost. There is, meaning I'm saying at least 100%. But in the case of Kissflow, you're probably going to get anywhere between 4 to 5x. Not just Kissflow, but most of the low code no code platforms will give you a good advantage. So I think that is an area where all the internal process automations plus the legacy modernization applications can actually be a huge cost advantage when it comes to technology investments if you choose a low code no code strategy. So that is what I would say.
In fact, there was one question from one audience member who was asking, if we use low code, no code, and since you are a proponent, you can tell us whether does it result in vendor lock-in, or are there ways around it?
Meaning more, see, like in today's cloud software, we don't really think about software as something that we are owning, right? So you basically use software as a service, right? The notion of how we perceive software has permanently changed. What is today is important is data. Data is actually more valuable than code. So there was a time when code was more valuable than data, and then now people realize it's really the data that is actually more valuable than code. And especially when you're really looking at internal process automation, you're really like, for example, you run on SAP or run on Oracle for ERP, you don't own that code. You're running on SAP and Oracle's proprietary system. Nobody owns that code.
Correct.
Right, but you only own the data, right? And that's the way to look at anything going forward. So I think that's a very 20-year-old concept of lock-in. I think cloud has permanently changed.
And I'm sure you will be getting that question from a lot of people. So it's a valid, good answer from you. I'm really happy that we had this discussion. Sure. And before I get Sandeep Kaja to ask the question, I want like to request my team to launch the first audience poll. Can we have that? And the question is, how do you plan to accelerate digital transformation? The panelists cannot vote. This is only for the audience members. You can all vote. The voting has started. It's on your screen. Can you see the results of the poll? So this was the question: how do you plan to accelerate digital transformation? Which incidentally happens to be my next question also to the panel. And the audience feels that there's a very close competition between the first and the second. Boost resilience and agility via automation, and involve business users and sell the benefits of digital transformation. So the employee buy-in, which I was talking about in the beginning, that also tends to get a very high score. Thank you.
No, I think the second question is little more deeper than just employee buy-in, right? The second answer, if you really look at it, it's talking about how to involve employees in the not as just users, but actually
In the
how to
business.
take the domain and process knowledge that they have.
Hmm.
Otherwise, what happens traditionally is you document all the business requirements in a document and send it to someone. They will develop it, throw it back to you, and then you test it, and then you throw it back to them. And then this, ping pong starts happening, and that is okay when you're developing mission critical applications, right? Because it's important. But when you're developing simple business applications, simple ones at least, you don't want to do that, and you would rather, because the business users sometimes may be able to make reasonable compromises, which they won't make those compromises if it is coming from someone else, because they'll say, no, I want that button exactly there. If they are developing the form, they'll be okay to put the button wherever they want. But right, when somebody comes and gives them the form, no, I didn't put it there. You want to put the exact. So those kind of compromises they won't be able to do. So when we take the business users into the digital transformation paradigm, meaning it's good. I was surprised to see the audience resonated with that the maximum, right? That was,
That's it. Suresh, I would also like to add one other facet here. See, the more the involvement of the business users, the easier the adoption.
Yeah.
And it is these days, at least, it is wrong to think that IT, this digitization is the fiefdom of IT. I mean, if you see the way users are coming up with digital applications and their evincing interest, you'll be surprised that multiple queues in the process of selection of softwares and all come from one user departments, and then when we see that, I mean, some of them are good fit out there.
Yeah.
So that's the.
Alokesh, I would like to add here.
Right? People who are closer to the problem know how to solve it better.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. You have to partner. You have to partner with them.
Yeah.
Correct. Akhilur, you wanted to
Alokesh, I
add
would like to
something?
add here. I think here users, the perspective of user is also different in automation and digital. And many times users feel that, okay, if something, whether it's a robot or it's a, automated machine or process, whether it's an energy or asset management, remote monitoring, then what is that I'm going to do? So they're also confused. I think here, the best thing what digitalization is providing is also a platform for the users to use their experience, competency in a higher level. In the sense, a lot of time they used to do earlier, collecting the data. 80% of the time, users, let's say whether they are in manufacturing or in energy monitoring or analysis or even service area, 80%, 90% of the time they will use for collecting the data, and then maybe only 10% left to do maybe make some graph and then say that this is what the report is. But I think with the automation and digitalization, what we are seeing in the energy domain, in the power system domain, that we are saying that, okay, hey, now you don't have to spend 80% of your time on just collecting the data. You spend only 10 to 20% time, and remaining 80% time is available for you to analyze the data, use your experience, past experience, how you can improve the situation. And also the same example I gave where, the robot is diving inside the transformer and collecting whole lot of data in couple of hours in a day instead of, so many days. And the same service maintenance engineer, earlier he used to spend almost 90% of the time doing all these, mechanical stuff of disassembling, doing all those, ensuring everything is fine. Then he gets the data. Today, with this robot, he's getting the data almost like in couple of hours, and he starts analyzing. So I think empowerment is very important in this, which many times people miss it. They think that, okay, automation, digitalization, it's going to, what is that I'm going to do? So this is we call it democratization, or maybe, empowerment of users.
And it's quite phenomenal, right? It's really empowering employees and, across functions also.
Yes.
Like you're mentioning, then there are other functions also where they're. So let me now just call on Sandeep Kaja. I think you are ready. I think his question is for Rakshit. Sandeep, you want to switch on your camera and ask your question? Yep, come on. Your question, please.
So it is not only to Rakshit, but to all the gentlemen out here. So what do you think, what attention should be given to the security aspect in this race to digital transformation? With so much of concern growing for data security and so much of threats across different IT, different domains, be it power, retail, or finance. So, what attention should be given to the security aspect in this race of digital transformation?
Okay,
So,
thank you. We'll
yeah,
start with Rakshit since he mentioned you in the.
Yeah,
Sure.
it is very recently that Rakshit handled this. So maybe Rakshit would be the first point to start.
Sure.
Thank you, Sandeep.
So thanks, Sandeep. So clearly, like a lot of the panelists talked about, security is a core part of digital transformation, right? As data becomes much more easily available, access to data empowers a lot of people. You also want to make sure that data doesn't fall into the wrong hands or is not.
we lost Rakshit for
May I jump in, Alokesh?
Yes, yes, please.
Yeah. So I think here, depending on the industry, type of business, and also the context, the priority is different. So we call it, two categories. It's like CIA, confidentiality, integrity, and availability of the system. Okay.
Yeah.
By security, you have to ensure, because in some business, confidentiality of data is utmost important. There are businesses, there are B2B systems like in energy, automation, the industry. What happens? It is reverse, like availability, integrity, and confidentiality. Availability, because the system has to be available, whether there is a cyber attack or there is a malware, or because of some mistake, something is happening in the software. So system should be somehow be available, because like in our energy systems, in power systems, what happens if the system is not available even for a millisecond or half of a second? It can lead to actually blackout of a state grid. It has happened many times.
Yeah,
It can black out the entire plant of a plant operation, because everything is automated and all, and then suddenly with this 10 milliseconds something happens, and then it restarts or it shuts down some of the sensors, actuators, controllers. I think it's very important, and depending on your application, whether availability is at most important, or whether it's confidentiality, or in between, you can have a sort of cybersecurity strategy. We call it threat modeling. We make a threat modeling of the entire process, entire business, and see that where the threat is more, and what is the risk, and what is the impact of the risk. So there are techniques available, using some standards, and also then based on that, you can also create a defense in depth kind of strategy for your system. The system can be IT system, it can be also automation system, it can be also together OT, IT, as well as IoT system. Create that, threat modeling, do the defense in depth, and then devise the system to ensure the cybersecurity.
Thanks. Now, Rakshit, you come back. I hope we can hear you.
Yes, I'm here. My apologies. Yeah, I think there was a power outage. So I'll just quickly answer it. One is, in this day and age, the security threat has become much more broad-based. There are multiple lines of attack that are possible on your systems, not only at the application layer, but at the cloud layer, the hardware layer, different cloud-based systems that your employees are using. So you need to make sure you're protected against all of these. Specifically to Sandeep's questions, of course, there's a bunch of tools that are available, and you want to arm yourselves with some of the good technology that is available. The other thing that I've learned based on my experiences, of course, is make sure there are multiple layers of protection, right? Don't count on any single tool or any single layer to solve everything completely, right? So when you are designing your security systems, your security architectures, plan for some things that could potentially go wrong. Make sure that in case something goes wrong, there's something else that is available as a backup, right? And it's not one single wall that's holding sort of the fort. Right. So that's really a learning for me, and and that would generally be my advice in terms of how you design your security.
Sure. Let us come back to the digital acceleration strategy, in digital transformation and the poll that we saw.
Is a
I want to,
huge.
Manish, you want to talk a little bit about, acceleration in, digital transformation in the next 6 months? How do you plan to accelerate? What's your plan for the next 6 months or, the next year, both from a customer as well as from an employee perspective? What are the things that you're beginning to now put in place?
Yeah. So I think, like I said, like in the initial discussion, we talked about the two phases, right? I think the second phase on the ways of working that is changing in the workplace, that I think will be a big focus as you come in, right? So in the last 6 to 7 months, when people are, whenever they have to visit an office, you have to get approvals, you're dropping an email, then sending it to the admin. There is a lot of activities that you're doing, right? Which are very easily manageable, built on the capacity, because you don't want the office to be, everybody to be in the office at the same time with the social distancing concern you have, right? That's the reason we are all working from home remotely right now. So I think that is one stream from the employee ecosystem to make sure how do we keep everyone safe, how do you manage that, and how can the digital ecosystem help in that, right? Even touchless entry, right? Face recognition that comes in when you're going to the office. It can be as simple as that on one side. On the other side, like I mentioned, with the demand in the market changing and the consumption pattern changing, how do we look at fulfilling those new channels, right? That becomes a critical cornerstone. These two areas. And of course, the third one, the supply chain to deliver based on the new consumption patterns, right? These are the three areas which are the highest priority as I look into the different capabilities on how we get better visibility. Now, these are more of the business strategies you want to align to. But I think the cornerstone for building still goes back to the same component of making sure you have analytics in place, right? Having the core platform and getting insights from the data that is flowing in. How is that changing your decision? And how are you driving some of these things? I think earlier my co-panelists mentioned about how the cloud journey, software as a service, I think Suresh was talking about, because everything is as a service today, right? Your dependency of rolling it out is a lot faster already, right? Because you're not getting and acquiring servers because you're already on the cloud, even if you're using it as an infrastructure as a service with partners in that space with the hyperscalers. So those are the key drivers I see, Alok, from our perspective on how we are driving. And I think, like I said, the ways of working this, as much as we would like it to be over, I don't think it's over anytime soon. I think this will be the ways of working for at least 6 months, according to me, with all the vaccines reaching the end state and we get adjusting to that.
Asim, same question to you. What's your plan for the, it's short term, next 6 months, year? What are the things that you're going to do?
Yeah, so one of the things which we are doing and doing pretty aggressively is on the automation and as earlier panelists said about low code, no code, right? So that's where, I mean, some of our initiatives are going towards. We are for internal technology teams in terms of, say, deployment speed and things like that, because we are doing massive deployment day in, day out. We have large teams. So internal teams also are our customers, right? If we look at that, our developer community, which is a large component of our workforce, is also our customer. And we want to make sure that we give them best experience for that. And that we are achieving through low code, no code, right? So how do we do more automation towards our deployments, towards self-service? And these are the some initiatives which we are driving very aggressively over, say, next 6 months as well.
Okay, great. And Neil, I'm going to come to you next. But before I ask you your question, let me bring forth the next poll. And then I'll come to you with a question, based on that poll, as well as the acceleration strategy that we were talking about. So, Nidhi, can we launch the next poll? Okay, the question is, what is the biggest roadblock in your digital transformation journey? And the options are change management, proof of ROI, lack of unity in adoption, lack of digital talent and experience. The poll is on right now. Give us a few seconds before I can share the results. Oh, this is getting really close. Almost all four options are getting almost the similar kind of.
I think they should have given multiple choice.
Yeah, We have given 4 choices. You mean choose multiple answers?
Yeah.
Is it possible to choose?
But that may be the fact, because there are people from different industries and then different companies. It all depends on that and where are they today and then how they would like to see this.
Yeah, I would say if proof of ROI is an issue, that's a whole different type of company culture than if it's lack of digital talent. So it depends on where the company is at that point. Because if you're still struggling to show the proof of ROI, then your company is pretty far behind in the digital journey.
Right.
Yeah.
You all can see the poll results now?
Wow.
Yeah, they're pretty close. They're pretty close.
Yeah, very, very close. Neil, what do you make of this? And we were discussing about the acceleration. Change management has always been a major, issue, and there are whole volumes written on change management. So Neil and then Venkat, I'd really like your
change management is one of the key roadblocks. If you see, what happens is that this comes as a change. The digitization or accelerating digitization comes up as a change, and then this is for the people to adopt. So a technology can see, one thing is, how will you handhold the users so that they start adopting it, the organization start leveraging it. Only then will you sense the benefits coming out of it. At the same time, when you're embarking on a digital journey, you need to be very clear that to spell out to the stakeholders as well as the users, saying that a technology solution can facilitate and improve business processes, but it doesn't define the business process for you. So that has to be amply spelled out. Similarly, while it will improve the workforce productivity, it won't fix poor performance. That's a people management issue. See, the expectations have to be set out forthwith. And then after that, obviously, you will need to handhold them and make them sense value out of it. Long-term adoption by business users is dependent on the value which they sense out of certain solution. So that's key to adoption. That's key to the long-term success of a digital journey.
Yeah, 100%. What Mr. Venkatraman said is correct. It's not just about, digital transformation is let's roll out some adoption programs and train people in the new technology. Like, that's just basic stuff. First, you need to explain like why we're using it. What's going to be the long-term impact of these things. If people feel like it's the CIO's job to just roll out new software, then it's missing the big picture. So yeah, definitely change management should be at top, because this is not just about adding technology. It's about totally transforming the way the business operates and the systems around it. I really like what Mr. Akilor said about robots seeing software as colleagues, not just about tools that are there. And I think that's another total transformation that companies need to think about, is that they're not just adding technology and tools, but they're really changing the structure of the teams. And now the technology is as equal important as the humans that are on the team, and how they work together is very important. And that's a huge change management issue when it comes down to it. But all the other issues are important too, especially talent. I think we need to start to realize that when you hire even somebody who's in a management role now has to be somewhat of a technologist, using a platform like Cxo. They have to be able to create their own processes. They can't be reliant on IT for some of the small things that are there. And so they should be able to use these digital tools and to bring it in. And so everyone needs to up their digital skills, but we also need a lot more specialists too.
So you'd say that focusing on, employee skills is probably one of the more critical aspects of digital transformation today?
Yeah, definitely. In the future, there's no one who's going to be in a essential role that won't touch technology. So everyone needs to have just kind of basic digital hygiene, digital skills. Anyone you bring in should be able to manage a project digitally, should be able to make a quick workflow and automation. In the same way that anyone now you hire is going to be able to write an email or to maybe make a Word document. 5 years from now, that level of digital proficiency is going to be up to the level of, you got to be able to kind of organize your own things, your own systems, and put those together, and not continuously being reliant on the CIO and the IT team. Those teams will still exist, and they'll work on some of those more high level mission critical things, but the basic level of everyone needs to increase.
Yeah, so just taking this particular thread forward, Manish, I'd like to just come to you in terms of reorientation of workplace practices. In your organization as well as in your industry, do you see technology, helping reorient workplace practices? I mean, apart from remote work on all which we have seen, right? And we would probably not be doing the webinar, and if it were not for COVID, we'd be meeting face to face, right? So tell us a little bit about this issue of workplace practices and the impact of technology.
Yeah. So I think adding up to what Mr. Venkataraman and Neil said, right? I think if you see how it is transforming is how the digital IQ is going up, right? I think the change management and business alignment that we have been talking about, right? It comes back to that component of saying how is the workflows evolving in the journey, right? And that becomes a very critical bit as you look at it. It's not just the individuals building that, but you having the right culture and behavioral changes of risk taking, increasing collaboration, and those kind of components, right? And organizations which are moving in that direction, one of the biggest things that you're seeing is how different streams of work. I think Mr. Rahman talked about it, right? In saying the CIA to AIC are two different ways of looking at the problem. And when you're looking at it, when it's consumer facing, an incident in that particular scenario, like Big Basket for Rakshit, right? How they respond to that will be way different than an impact in another scenario. And I think the employees are becoming more hands-on in that kind of activity. And COVID has helped in that journey as well, right? Because before they could just walk down to this, call the help desk or the desk side support to come and help them with something. Now they have been in an environment where they have to figure it out themselves, because that was the challenge initially when they started working remotely. So I think that has been the journey where we are moving in that space, with each of the functions are moving at different pace, but I think the skill set level is definitely improving for the workforce, and that is critical in the next few years on how we, and I think that connects back to the survey as well, because change management, as you look at it, will tie back to the skill set that we have, how are we evolving, alignment with the business strategy, and also looking at, though the ecosystem exists, it's more looking at the business problems rather than talking about the foundational building blocks. Because those becomes the cornerstone, and they become more of commodity today, right? And that I think will be the journey.
Right, and before I take there is a question from the audience from Manoj Dua, and Manoj is here with us now on camera. Manoj, can you switch on your camera? And his question is very closely related to what we are currently discussing.
Hi, thank you everyone for the session. My question is related to basically adopting technology. So at times when we bring out a specific tool or an application that we want to implement, the first thing that starts with is going to the users to assess that what kind of wish list do they have. At times these wish lists go to such an extent that it becomes really difficult to shortlist the application that we want to implement, and it keeps revolving around because the wish list never ends. I want to understand that how should we keep a closure to that wish list, and what should be the process to implement such stuff?
Very good question, Manoj. Thank you. And Suresh, you want to take that?
Yeah, I think push the problem to them. Once you become, I think some of those simpler applications or simple processes are better done by the business themselves. If they do that, they won't come to the wish list to you. And you would have quality time to do more sophisticated, complex applications which require the solution design, solution architecture, user experience, all that problems that you really want to spend time on, you're not able to do, because business is actually coming up with these simple applications they can do themselves and then dumping it on you and then escalating it and all of that, right? You push that problem to them, provide a platform, train them, and then enable them. That's really what we have. So we have customers in oil and gas. We have customers in FMCG, retail, every single industry, where the CIOs and the IT functions basically able to provide a platform and provision it to the users, so that the users are able to quickly build up these processes and then get it done by themselves, because they have the domain knowledge. And it's the no-code platforms allows them to quickly, like a drag and drop. So the no-code platform, the simplest way to understand is, think about it like Visual Basic on the cloud. right? If you have Visual Basic on the cloud, people can simply go online. There's nothing to install. Drag and drop, build the process, build the workflows, specify who needs to approve something, and then push a button. It's live, right? They then that actually changes the paradigm, and they maintain it themselves. They don't come to you. The only issue that you need to worry about is account provisioning, management, licensing, security, uptime, and you work with the service provider and get that done. So that completely changes the paradigm.
Okay. And Rakshit, you want to also join in? How do you take care of the user wish list? There must be several of them going around.
So I think just to add to what Suresh is saying, the other part of the journey is not to take your user research very literally, right? I think as if you're especially running a consumer-facing platform, obviously there's a laundry list of thousands of things that people would like you to do. The art in both user research as well as product management and design is to extract the themes out of what are the biggest pain points, what are the biggest needs, what will actually move the needle in terms of for the business, for the user, and then synthesizing this into real product requirements, right? So sure, you should talk to your user, listen to them carefully, make a note of what their specific wish is, but then use your intellectual horsepower to actually transform this into features that move the needle both from a customer and a business perspective, right? So that's the additional layer I would bring in, and that's what we try to do on a day in and day out basis.
Yeah.
So I would like to add here, see, I have this experience, so I'll speak from my experience. What happens is that this is the typical tendency of users to increase the wish list and all. If you start partnering with them, yes, it does involve some effort. Sit across, include them as key stakeholders, maybe through a mechanism called a maybe steering committee or some other forums. And in the shortlisting process, you need to shortlist the requirements, and maybe one of the parameters could be the business benefits they could derive out of it, or in their role, how would that feature benefit in their role. Maybe you can sit across and discuss with them. Once you do this, I have seen that it may take slightly more time and effort from our side, but believe me, the buy-in is multiplied, their acceptance also, and there is a common list in terms of the priority and all which they agree to, and then on it's a smooth flow compared to what it would have been if this was not done. So partnering and involving them and making them understand the limitations as well as the benefits which will accrue out of this, that's important in this.
Maybe I can add to what Venkat said. So it's basically giving a feeling that it's a co-creation of these applications.
Yes.
The technology provider, the service provider, and also the user. They should understand that it's not that, because there are many people, they have the earlier mindset that I get a product, standard products and standard apps, standard platform, and then it will start, working, all my wishes will be fulfilled. But the very digitalization, the concept of digitalization is actually a iterative process. You can start, you may have 20 requirements, but you have to start with 2-3 requirements, get the experience, get the benefit, move to the another 2, another 3, like that. So this is something, one is the co-creation, that they are part of it, they are creating it. Second is, it is also iterative process where you also need to, in each and every step, you have to also prove the value to your management. I think if they understand this iterative process and they are part of it, I think that we have seen, and basically we do that for our customers. We have this kind of workshops where we do, co-creation workshop, and then start defining the problem statement, start defining the requirements, and then how to, implement them, because they are going to, and as I said earlier, that they should feel that, yeah, that is something which will give them to really analyze and use their experience and do something better, improve their performance, their own performance, their, the system performance, their business performance. Yeah.
Correct. So, we are 7 minutes to closure. So what I'll do is we have one final poll to go, and we'll just quickly discuss on that. We have been talking a lot about the no code and the low code platform. So the next question is related to that. And the question is, what's your biggest concern about adopting no code or low code tools? And the options are, now we have 5 options here: lack of demand from business users, budget constraints, difficulty identifying the right tools, lack of executive support, don't know enough about low code workflow platforms. That is the one that's taking the cake as of now. Bottom one, people don't seem to know enough about it to be able to spend money. Let's wait for a little while more. Number 3 is also catching up.
Actually, the low code market is now $40 billion.
Globally, no?
Yeah, it's a global market of it's one of the biggest hot growing market.
Yeah, it must be growing very fast.
Yeah.
Apart from being such.
Yeah.
I think this is exactly what it empowers the users.
Yes, exactly.
It's not for the developer, you see.
Correct.
Developers, they do much more, more complex, complicated application development, platform development. In fact, the platform of no code, low code also, that is where the developers are required. Whereas the end product, the platform for no code or low code is for the end users, many of the end users. Yeah.
That is
it is to do with KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. Right, Suresh?
And then focus on the end result. Yeah, I mean that's
the first day when I was showcasing this KISSflow platform, my seniors, they said, "What is it? Come back with the name again." Then KISSflow. So that KISS word was, then I had to elaborate it. It stands for this, and so it's all about being simple. And believe me, the reason why it has been greatly successful in our organization, it is pretty simple. So you have to keep it simple. These days, users yearn for that.
Yeah. No, I think when we named it, we were also very bit skeptical, but then, but there is a conversation starter, and especially when you're building a new company, a startup, you need the brand to stand out.
Exactly.
Yes.
You need to better have a conversation starter rather than a blah name, right? So we said, okay, let's go for it.
But how easy or how difficult is it to plot a sort of a low code or a no code platform into a larger digital transformation, strategy?
It's not very difficult because most of the low code, no code platforms have very powerful integration capabilities. For example, in KISSflow, we have an equivalent of Zapier is one of those, integration platforms in the cloud space now, right? Integration hub. So we have something like that embedded in the platform itself. So which means it easily coexists with the existing enterprise infrastructure. And most of these platforms today use web services. We run on microservice architecture, and then everything exposes a REST endpoint and API calls. And even if the integration connector is not available, you can use the REST APIs and webhooks. So it just plugs in from day one. So I don't see any practical difficulty in doing that.
Okay. Any of you are using
rightly? I think it's like VB for the IoT.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's
for the cloud.
I have coded in VB, long back.
Even I had done.
So,
I had also,
Visual Basic on
also,
cloud.
I had also done VB and C++ and Visual C++ long time ago. Really long time ago, before I came into journalism.
But I mean, if you compare with respect to C++, VC++, and all, VB is very quick. You can do some rapid kind of learning and start developing your app, and it works.
It works.
Yeah, in fact, I remember from my time, I'm talking of the early 90s, that was when even the Dreamweaver had come, and you could create your websites from, templates instead of creating everything from scratch and writing HTML code. So I think this is a continuation of that, so you don't have to write the entire code yourself.
Basic, and there was another tool called Power Builder.
Yeah, there was Power Builder also, correct.
Yeah, I actually started my career with Power Builder. That's the first official training I took. I came from Kadalur to Chennai, paid 5,000 rupees in 1993 to take the training. It's a 5.
Also, there was something called Fox Pro.
Yeah. So,
Yeah,
anyway,
Foxpro.
so that we are basically saying the resurgence of this 30 years later.
I think it's a continuation. Foxpro,
It's the
now that you
reinvention
mentioned.
of all those tools in a different way, more scalable, more faster deployment. Yeah.
That is true.
Yeah, then so much more powerful database applications. Now, those days we used to use DBase 3 Plus and Oracle in its really original kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Now things have really gone a long way away. But
the tools that are out there now, a lot of the original ideas have been there for several decades. They're just slightly more improved. Like Slack itself is an old technology, but it's
so every time I drink this, I have to make a disclaimer: this is not beer.
Okay. So Manish, that was for you, huh? Just
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah. Celebrating our customer.
So we are at the end of our discussion. I would not like to take more time from the panelists, and really like to thank you for such a wonderful discussion. We touched upon so many aspects of digital transformation. The fact that senior management is really getting cognizant of this, and that business is driving digital transformation now, rather than the IT team struggling, to find investments and trying to convince business users. It is now happening the other way around, because business wants the advantage of digital technologies today. And there are all these no-code and low-code platforms that can actually help you move to digital faster than you could, imagine earlier. So lots of great insights. Thank you all very much. I would like to invite Suresh to give his vote of thanks, and then we'll end the call.
Oh, me? Okay. I didn't expect that. Okay, guys, thanks very much. And I think it was a very engaging conversation. Thanks, Venkat, Asim, Manish, and Akito, and Rakshit. It was fantastic. And thanks, Neil, taking time early morning, 4:30 in your time. I think for you, it's like too early.
Are you going back to sleep?
No.
Yeah, thank you very much. And Rakesh, as usual, your moderation was world class. And I was actually wondering, how are you going to manage such a big galaxy of panel members? So I'm normally used to like three to four people. This is like a massive panel, right? This is like a cricket team.
What happens is, when you have a larger panel, there are so many more views. It makes it more engaging. I have handled panels of, I don't want to say it in a public forum, but I've handled panels like of 18 people, 21 people, and we've still had a fairly engaging conversation.
Yeah, so I was a bit skeptical, but then it went really smooth, and it never felt like we had a time crunch, and we all had time to express our views, and it was fantastic. Thank you very much. I really appreciate you guys taking time and coming on this.
Thanks to all panelists.
You, everybody. And from ET, on behalf of ET, I'd also like to thank Cxo for giving us this platform. Thank you, everybody. We'll stay in touch.
Definitely. Thank you.